Good afternoon, LBC Radio. My name is Corey Rosen, and I'm with the Story Podcast today. Today, I have an awesome guest, but before we get into that, I have some merchandise for sale. If you'd like to really support us, we have stickers, and we have hoodies coming out with the logo on the front, and the first 50 guests on the back, including my guest today, Mr. John Milosich. Born in Buffalo, New York, raised in Erie, Pa, actor musician John Milo Milosich continues to recalibrate in his trajectory as a creative and performer. He taught music and theater in public and private schools for 10 years, and as he scrubbed toilets in exchange for acting and dance classes at Synetic Theater, it led him to mainstage shows with them at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and neighboring D.C. theaters. He composed music for live performance by a gypsy punk band, a devised rendition of the Brechtian play Mother Courage and Her Children. It pays $50 in a case of PBR, but there he took up the accordion and soon after earned himself a role in a 2-year Broadway touring production that ran in 70 cities across the U.S., Canada, and Japan. He acted, played guitar, accordion, and foot percussion at Arena Stage in D.C., Kansas City Repertory Theater, and Baltimore Center Stage before the pandemic, but has yet to be cast in a theater production close to Lancaster. Instead, he's the ringleader of the accordion-powered romp-rock band for adventures Featherburn and the one-man ensemble MiloSolo. So close. That's okay. You can find all of his projects in the description, whether it's featherburn.com at his band site. You can find him on John Milosich or Milosich.com. That is MILOSICH.com. And you can find all of other links in the description below. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Are you well?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited. So, what got you inspired to do music? Was it as a kid, or was it later on, or?
Yeah, I think later on. I never did any music. I sang for a semester in high school, like in chorus, and that was fun. I became really inspired to make music when I was in my second year of college.
What inspired you, do you think?
It was just I got railed by Nerf guns by my housemates. and I ran away into my my housemate's room, and I shut the door, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna stay around here for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
And I was sorting through his CDs, or like looking through his CDs, and I saw Peter Gabriel's live album, and I looked through the songs, and I remembered as a kid that the name of the song Biko, and like I recall the melody of the song from when I was a little kid, like pulling into the driveway of my, the house I grew up in with my, parents. I was like on the ledge of the car in the back seat. Like, we didn't use, never mind seatbelts. I was on the ledge of the car, the back window, and I was like, my parents were pulling in, and I remember that melody from that time in my life, and it was like an inspiring melody. So I threw the CD in, and it was a live recording of a live show,
Mm-hmm.
So like I forwarded to Biko, and you hear this drone, and the drum beat comes in, boom, 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 boom. And he goes, "This is for Stephen Biko," and the crowd goes, "Ah!" And I didn't know who Stephen Biko was. I soon, I learned. I did some homework after that, but I thought to myself, I was like, what really inspired me about it, like even before I learned the story of Stephen Biko or of Peter Gabriel writing the song, was that he was dedicating the song to someone else.
Mm.
And at that time in my life, I was like, I had just started like making like acting in some plays, and I was struggling to find a motivation for being in a theater production that was greater than myself. I was just struggling with like, oh well, I need more praise. I need people to think I'm good. And really, it's like if I could have gotten over myself and made it a gift, that would have been the answer. At that point. So it's like I just had this epiphany. It was like the generosity in Peter Gabriel's art, that song struck me, and I was like, I want to make music. And really, what it was I want to get over myself and make art that matters to people, that makes a difference in people's lives.
Right. And that's the main problem or main issue, I guess, that hits musicians a lot is getting over yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where real music starts.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I'm over myself.
Oh no,
it's a lifelong.
it's a lifelong journey for sure. But once you make that realization, it starts.
Yeah, you can start wrestling with it and making progress as you go.
So did you do acting beforehand, or?
Except for like the kindergarten play. No, I took up acting in my first year of college. I was an undeclared major, and I just was like, well, I'll try out for a play, and I had a good audition, and got cast in a good role. But I remember looking down in my first show and seeing my hands shake while I was performing in front of the kids. It was a kids' theater production. So, like, talk about not being over yourself.
So did you fall in love with acting then?
Yeah. I was really I was dedicated to it. I got involved in every play that I could at that point. And I mean, I guess the problem was that in my second year of college, I was doing a lot of things other than my schoolwork. I never missed a rehearsal for a play, and I never missed a party, and I never missed many other things, but I wasn't actually, doing well in my classes, so I got booted. My, Edinburgh University said, look, with 1.0 and a 1.04 grade point average, you can't, nobody's going to give you any more money. We're putting the kibosh on that. You go figure things out, come back, matriculate. That was a word that I learned at that point. I needed to make progress and grow I needed to matriculate in order to get my student loans back.
What a word.
So I had to go and earn money. I spent a semester in Buffalo working a couple of jobs. Like, I was living with my father at that time. And when I came back, I tried out for the music program. I said I wanted to declare myself a music major. So it was in my third year of college that I took up music in any really meaningful way.
So what then? What then? Did you get into the theater program?
The music program? Yeah, I did. And it was good. I still probably, I regret not being more disciplined about my study, because I was a very social person, and I still got into musicals and plays afterward, and I completed, I did well academically, but like when I look back on it, I just needed to have, I should have hunkered down at the piano and gotten my reading skills more, because I was already way behind, like the other students who had picked up music in high school and studied, So it's like when I graduated, I got my first teaching job. I went to Bangkok, Thailand for a job, because I failed my teacher's exams. Because I couldn't read. I was, I couldn't read music. And I could read, but I was a poor sight reader. So part of it was being musically literate and musically competent. And I only had 2 years really of music study. So I wasn't really ready. I got hired, and I did a good job. I was always a good teacher. And, I put my heart and soul into being creative and being, developing relationships with my students and everything. So I made up for it in good ways, but as far as being an actual musician, I was not very competent and not very comfortable. I could play guitar and I could sing well, but it took me longer to learn a simple song for my students. But anyway, I came back, I took my NTEs and I finally passed them, I had spent a year teaching in Thailand, and I got a job at another school in Southern Maryland, which sort of led to me getting another job in the DC area, so that's what landed me there.
And for those of you in college that you really should take the time and because listen to our mistakes that we made, and don't repeat those same mistakes. Because I immensely wish I had listened to we're supposed to do here. We were supposed to do at least 7 hours minimum a week, practicing. Minimum. Some people do 30. I don't know how they do it, but they do. But still, I barely did one. Besides, I barely did any, and I almost got booted out too. Actually, it was only what my composition studies that really saved me from getting kicked out, because I was gonna get kicked out because I had like a 2.0 GPA in my percussion studies, and I was not that I didn't like percussion. It's just, well, first off, I'd have to come to the chapel from wherever on campus I was, whether I'd be in Peterson Hall, which is like, for me, like 5 miles away. Which is not, it's like a 10-minute walk, but you don't want to have to get up out of your room and then walk 10 minutes in the snow or in the rain or in the blistering sun. I just don't want to do it. I was lazy, and it's something you should really work on. It's because it's discipline. It's building a discipline. Music is a discipline. If you want to get better at music, you have to be better at disciplining yourself. I'm curious, how did you get the job in Thailand?
It was a private school, like job site, so like I was led to the private school job site, and there were jobs all over, there were lots of other, I had interviewed with a school in New Jersey. It was like, but the reason I went to the private school, job website was, because I'd failed my NTEs and I wasn't going to get a teaching job until I was certified, so in order to get certified, you need to pass your NTEs. And I just didn't have everything together yet,
So you found a job in Thailand and decided, I'm going to go to Thailand.
Yeah, I didn't even know where Thailand was. I thought it was the place in Indiana Jones, because I knew it was in Bangkok. So I heard in my head, Pankot Palace or whatever it was in Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom where he went. So that was the picture that I had. But I was ready to go. I'd never gone anywhere, and it was hard. There was culture shock.
I'm very sure.
I wanted to come home and by October, but I stuck it out, and it was great. Like we would the teachers there, we would pack our bags on Thursday night and leave them at our at our hall, in our hallway, in our like condos. And the bell would ring on Friday, and we would run to our condos, grab our stuff, change, and then we would head straight to Bangkok, in town, and take a train down to the south, and then like buses and planes, trains, automobiles all the way down to the south, and we would catch a ferry, and then by like maybe 2 a.m, we were on a tropical island, like sipping lassies. We would have to sleep, but we would wake up, and for the rest of the weekend, we were like on an island,
That's awesome.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
Do Thai speak English well, or?
They've invested in it. Like,
Gotcha.
They've always been investing in it, at least since I remember, right? I'm 47, so like I don't remember long, but like I know the American commerce and the, like commercial industry has been pulling them toward tourism, especially. They'd always been,
of course.
Invested in tourism, and learning English was always an asset for Thai.
Did you
people.
ever get to learn Thai? Or
I did. I spent a
okay.
year. Like we wanted to meet girls, so we studied pretty hard. It was like we were disciplined.
Right,
We were
disciplined that way.
Like for a year, I was pretty good with the Thai language. Like I forgot it all now. It was
Right, of
40 years ago now? No, not 40. I'm 47, right? So 30 years ago or something.
You were like 7.
No, it was, I'm doing my math poorly. It was in 1999 and 2000 when I was there. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you move back, you take your MTIs?
NTEs? National
NTEs.
Teachers Exams.
National Teacher Exams.
Yeah.
And then you go to Maryland.
Yeah.
What, so was that your passion to teach?
No. You know what? I was always, like I said, I wasn't as competent as I needed to be at that point. So it was always like the prep work took a lot of time for me. So at that point, like I did it, you know what I mean? But it was always like, especially in your first and second year of teaching, your lesson plans and everything take a lot of time. And I stuck it out, I can't say like when I came back to the States, I did a great job at my first job. You know what I mean? Because that was still it was still my first teaching gig in the States, which is different than teaching in Thailand, just because at a private school there. I don't know. I think private schools are a lot less persnickety about curriculum,
It's a
and
lot less
I was
regulation.
I was thinking up lesson plans, thinking up cool, fun stuff to do that would teach Thai kids music. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Here, it's like, okay, you're looking at the
You have these choices, and you can't do
yeah,
anything outside of these
yeah,
choices.
and that for me was hard. Like for to like wrap my brain around and execute. For
Mm.
the first time, it was tough. And in my next job, I got was in Bethesda, Maryland, and it was at another private school, and I stayed there for 4 years, and that was like the right job for me. Just because like they were real supportive, and it was a community. It was such a great supportive community of mentors and colleagues. Like that school, it was Washington Episcopal School, and I miss it. There's some days I wonder. It's like I left because I wanted to pursue acting. So I wanted a part-time job where I could like spend more time composing music, more
Mm.
time auditioning, more time being in theater. So I went to a public school, and I was like point 0.5 time, so I could still pay my bills. I could still, I still had insurance,
Mm.
and a a retirement package that I wasn't putting as much money away because you work half time, you cut that in half. But anyway, I wanted to the reason I left that school was because I went to grad school.
Oh.
So that was the ultimate decision. Like I was 30 years old at the time, and I had taught for 4 years at that school. It was a wonderful school, but I was always, I don't know, I wasn't getting like the roles that I wanted in the theater productions, and I was like, well, do I need more training,
Mm.
and like the training that I got at Erie Pa University in Boulder was wonderful training, but like like for music and for acting and for dance, it wasn't musical theater. It was the opposite of that. It was where like the Buddhists met with the beat poets, So it was like this contemplative, almost like a lot of it was based on improvisation, like spur of the moment, very present moment creation.
Mm.
So like it wasn't this Broadway,
Right.
music, theater,
Right.
dance, but it was music, and it was theater, acting, and it was dance, but it was all based in the present moment. And the gifts that I took from that school, the real main gifts from that program were the ability to be like present on stage or at an audition without like, like
Right.
freezing up. It's like I just spent so much time meditating and so much time like convincing myself that this moment is not any more or less valuable than the next moment, like that I could handle myself in a room with people that were ultimately like judging me and deciding on my
Right.
future, not judging harshly. I mean,
Right. Of course.
but they want you, the people in the auditions, they want you to be the next, they, it would make their job simple if
If
you
you were
walked in and
there, yep.
you were the person, so like they want good things, but like still it's
It bothers.
understandable
Yeah.
to be like, but I like through that training, I could still myself, and be present right, for the moment and be responsive to whatever I needed to do. And then the other gift like that I sort of became convinced of, or they won me over with, is like whatever you want to do as an artist is what the world needs. The world does not need you to be another Peter Gabriel. The world does not need you to replicate any other person's art. Like if you want to put a chicken on stage and that's your thing, like that's your vision, the world needs you to be as you possibly can. They need the core truth of your art, without you trying to be or not be anyone else. That's what.
Right. Exactly. Because granted, if musicians could only copy each other, there would be no Elton John, there would be no Freddie Mercury, no Led Zeppelin, there would just be whatever first made music, and that's it.
Yeah.
And there'd be no variety. You have to be yourself, and that's not to say that you can't emulate others. Emulating others and putting your own spin on it it's figuring out who you are.
Yeah, I don't think we can help it,
Oh,
like
right,
how do we
exactly.
not emulate the art that we've witnessed,
Yeah. But to create it exactly is a mistake in my opinion. Unless unless you have a very particular audience.
Right, sure. I mean, yeah, there's that, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But hearing the same way that House of the Rising Sun and played 1,000 times, it gets a little boring after a
Yeah.
while. And playing it the same way also gets boring after a while. So so you decided to go to grad school.
Uh-huh.
What different challenges did you find there?
Gosh. You know what? When I think I don't know how I phrase this. I think like one thing that I came into that I also like became aware of that I wasn't aware of. Even living in DC for 4 years is like we started taking apart race, and racism with critical race theory, and I don't know. I feel ashamed, but also like before that, I thought that racism was bigotry. At least this is my like vocabulary of it. So like if you guys are more educated on it than I am, like just have grace with me, But my take on what racism was someone who had hate, who had ill will toward other races. But like learning there, like at Erie Pa, there was a component in our curriculum that was it was just called critical theory, but we took apart race a lot. And like I just started, one of my colleagues and one of my classmates, a black man struck. He walked out. He got into a heated discussion with some of the other students, and the students, they were maybe as aware as I was, and we were uneducated, you know what I mean? So he said, I'm not coming back to class until you guys do some work. You guys have to do a little study, do a little research, and figure out what race and racism is. And that was a stand of critical resistance that made a huge difference in my life, because I cared about this man, and I didn't like view myself as a racist, but I had, I participated in a racist system without awareness or I wouldn't say care. I mean, I would care, but like in the way that like, if you're not working against the current of racism and oppression, not just like racism, but sexism and heterosexism, all the the things that like as a heterosexual white male, you and I, that's assuming anything about you that I just assumed. I don't know. So like, I'm just saying like, if you're not working against that with action and awareness and time and effort, like you're sort of part of the flow of it. You're the current.
You're being complicit.
Yeah. So it's like, if you don't know, it's just your responsibility to find out and do some work. So like that spurred me to start reading about it. And it was like, it opened up a whole new world of awareness that I was like, oh, dang it. Like I was 32 years old at the time, and I was like, man, I could have done so much more. So like that led me to, I produced this anti-racist white guy theater piece when I got back to DC, because I was moved to like to do something about it. And like, it's probably like, to be honest, if like, I think for the people of color in the audience, I wasn't saying anything new. They were like, yeah, and
right,
and then to the white people, it might have struck a chord, like, oh, or they could get in an argument with me about it. I had big blowout fights with my dad about race and racism, just because like he's old school, old boy, you know what I mean? And like the stuff that they like that comes out of their mouth was just like, it was grotesque. And like after I had learned a little bit about it, you know what I mean? But anyway, it changed my life. So that was like, I suppose that was a struggle, is like coming into myself as like a more aware, anti-oppressionist, like I'm a more aware ally. And I'm not perfect. I still fall short. You know what I mean? I have the luxury to duck in and duck out of it whenever I want to. And I'm not like always driven. You know what I mean? Sometimes I just, watch TV. You know what I mean? But like it gave me a new outlook on life and art making.
So that challenged you musically. It spurred you into action.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and theatrically, so
Yeah.
like I wrote that play, and then there are a couple there are Featherburn tunes that like have to do with with gender, with race. It's not all politically driven, but like it's part of my art now. It's on my mind. It's in my heart. So it's like it's in the words. It's in the
Right.
music.
Yeah, I got you. So, what was the experience like writing that play and having it performed? What were some challenges that you faced going into that? And this could be non-political as well.
Mm,
Just challenges that you didn't expect to happen.
sure.
Because writing on and putting on a play that's a big feat.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hired a director. I got a grant from the Montgomery County Arts Association. So I took that money and I hired myself a director. Uh, who like took me through like writing prompts. He's like,
Mm.
you know, uh, write down as many moments that you remember with your father, and go. And he, 5 minutes. So I would write, and then we'd see, 18 memories that I like conjured up, and then I would write out more of that. I would elaborate on the story. So like there was a lot of material that we needed to leave out, and then it was a one man show. So like
Oh.
not only like I had all this text to memorize. They were my stories, but it was like a hefty amount of. It was a 45-minute show, and that's all me. So
Wow.
I also wrote some songs on piano, and I was a hack on piano, and I tried really hard, really hard, but I just didn't have the competency to play it, to execute it, like perfectly or
Mm.
even super well. Some of those songs I could still stand to practice. You know what I
Right.
mean? And two of them went on. There's I have a solo album called If that I released, and two of those songs are on there. And both of them are piano, but like, it wasn't a live audience. I could
Right. Of
say, no,
course.
that wasn't good enough. I take that section again. It was just a lot of material to really wrap, wrap myself around and be present and embodied, delivering.
So how does one write a one man show? That's I've never. Granted, I've heard of them, but I've never been to one. What is it just a monologue the entire time, or
Well, I told stories,
right?
most of it was stories. And then I like made stuff up too. Like I remember like there were these like commercials that I made up that were like kind of funny, and like looking back, some of them were pushing pushing buttons, because they
Right.
were making fun of racists actually, and making fun of like the racist that is or was me, like the ignorance and um so um I I forget the actual the question.
What is a one man show?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would recommend hiring a director, like, or and a writing coach. Somebody could help you. Like this gentleman, his name is Reggie Cabico, and I haven't been in touch with him for a long time, but I would definitely still consider him my friend. But he was a like a stream of consciousness, uh, uh, like spoken word artist.
Oh,
So he
okay.
coached me to like get the material up on its feet in different ways, to rattle it off as fast as I could now, and then maybe he had the outside eye. Like I think the hardest part about structuring a show like that is that I'm so close to it. You know what I mean? And you think
Yeah.
like looking back on it, so many years ago, it's like it's easy to see like, oh, this is where that structure could have gone to make it a better show, but like when you're up close to it, and you're still responsible for creating 20 more minutes of material or 30 more minutes of material. It's hard to tell like what is worth eh,
Telling.
hashing out. Yeah,
Yeah.
what is worth telling. Yeah. So I would definitely like recommend find someone else who knows what they're doing to coach you through the process and say like, like this gentleman, he's a wonderful artist, and he had an eye for like, okay, you got to tell that story, you got to unpack that, you know.
Yeah, having written my own musical. Granted, it's not a one-man show at all, but I definitely understand that you definitely need to have more people have input than not.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been having read-throughs since what 2019, because this is before the pandemic. It feels like years ago now, because it is. But
But it was a special time.
It was a weird time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like 2018, 2017 was like 10 years ago, more than just 5 now.
I can understand it.
Right.
I can understand it.
But yeah, it's invaluable because when you're so close to something, first off, you have your ego that's like attached to it, right? You're like, I don't want to get rid of that, or I don't think I need to expand on that. But then you have your own vision in mind, and that your ego attached to your vision because it's mine. I don't want to change it. It's mine.
Yeah.
To have someone else that can sit back, critique you, and force you to think of things other ways is invaluable.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay in DC at that college? University?
Well, the university where I like studied critical race theory is in Boulder, Colorado. So I was in DC, or the DC area for about 5 years, and then I left for 2 years to go there. Got that graduate education, came back and made that play in DC, where I spent another 5 years, like still teaching and making theater like on the side and in the summers.
Gotcha. So okay. Because in my mind,
Yeah.
I thought the critical race theory was at the Buddhist.
It is. It was.
Oh,
That's
it
where I
was.
studied that, and then I brought that
Gotcha.
learning back and was moved to make a show. Like, in fact, like there were a couple musical pieces that I wrote at Erie Pa that sort of gave birth to it. In the summer between my first and second year there, it was only a 2-year program. When I came back to DC, I had this. I should tell you, like, what spurred the whole piece was this dream that I had. And I dreamt that I was on the Eastern Shore, eating like dining with my sister, and it's like this ritzy place, you know, like yachts and things like that, you know,
like
and,
Ocean City.
yeah, and you know, so my sister is across from me, and she's telling me about well, you know, you should save for retirement. You should you need to think about, you know, your bills. You need to think about establishing yourself and getting, like, you know, and this is like I guess the adult in me, or my father and my sister, these people who care about me, you know, like want to see me like with some stability, you know? So like I'm talking with her about that and but I'm not really interested in it, right? So outside the window behind her is this great sailing race is about to begin. This race with these, you know, those giant boats that like they tip over,
Like
and they're
Charlie
like,
Brown Race for Your Life.
What?
Have you ever seen that? Charlie Brown Race for Your Life, the big sailboat race?
No.
It's a great movie. It's a great one. You should check that out.
Okay.
But big sailboats that rock all over the place.
Well, these are those ones that are like these streamlined ones that are like they lean
you mean-
over,
oh,
and
I
they got
got you.
you know
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guys
yeah,
are
yeah.
you know, and they're like, so that's about to start behind her, right? So I get up and I walk past her and I go outside and I register for this race in my dream, right?
Right, of course, yes.
I don't have a boat.
This is a
I don't
dream.
have a crew. I don't have a team. I don't have anything, but I'm in, right? Starting shot goes off. Bang, right?
Yes.
I'm like, well, now what do I do, right? So I go
Start
back
swimming.
up to the right. I go back to the restaurant and I look up on the wall of the restaurant and I take these two pieces of this antique ore, and I put them together in my hands and I hold them up above my head, and then it lifts me off the ground, and I float past the rest of the diners, and I go out past the porch of the second story of this thing, and I'm like hanging off of this ore, and it starts to pick up speed, and I go out like over the sea, past the shoreline, and I start picking up speed, and I'm passing all of these boats, these like, with everybody who does have their act together, and I'm just zooming past these, they're like underneath me. And then I get to this, I come up to this, like I see this island up ahead, and as I approach it, the land level comes up to meet my feet, and then I start climbing up this hill, and these native children, it's like this rich soil, and I'm like this is where all the other boats are going to come and land, right? I'm ahead of the game, right? And I start climbing this this hill of this like I'm just rambling about my dream, but I feel I should finish it off, right? Just because this is what spurred me to start this race piece, this theater piece. Like this was the seed that began it all, And so I'm climbing this hill, and I'm like, oh, I don't have any food. I'm thirsty. I'm like, what am I gonna do? This race is gonna be 2 days long. It's like one of those epic things that, like, you hit checkpoints, and then So I'm like, I don't have anything, right? So as I'm climbing this hill, these native children come and they meet me, right? And they're like, come on, you can do it. And they say, open your mouth. In their own language, open your mouth. And I'm like, I open my mouth, and they pour in these like juices and waters, like these life-giving nutrient drinks, this sustenance. They feed me, so I like have the energy, and I get to the top of the hill, and I'm like, thank you. And they're like, no, get going, go. We need you to win this race, So I get to the end of this, I end up like going into this youth hostel that's all full. Everybody's like checked in. It's overflowing. There are people like sleeping in the hallway, and there's no room. So I go past, and I find this big mansion of these like wealthy people that just like left town on the dime. They just left pizza boxes open. They were just like, we're going, blah! And I go into their house, and I end up like ordering takeout food or delivery food, and I'm watching TV on one of their beds, and I'm like, well, okay, this is the first leg of the race. What's the next leg? So I ended up I had this kalimba, and I wrote this piece out in a monologue form, and I played this kalimba pattern, and I told the story of the dream. That was like one moment of the race piece, which actually became One at a Time that you're going to play.
Oh,
the Featherburn song.
Cool. You have some elaborate dreams.
Well, it wasn't like, I don't have dreams like that every night. It was like, I woke up from that, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like it was a transformation dream. It was a quest dream, So like, I just remembered it, and I was, I needed to get it down. You know what I mean? It was calling me.
That's wild. I can barely remember dreams. It's like the only dreams that I remember very clearly are my nightmares.
Oh.
Because I got some really consistent nightmares.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it always starts out really friendly. But the person that's like, so it's like hide and seek, right? But I in my dream, I can tell when I'm having a nightmare whenever I'm like starting to have a nightmare.
I see.
Because the person that's chasing me is already creepy in some form or way. It's just, but it's innocent right now. And I know if I keep letting the dream happen, it's just gonna turn worse and worse and worse and worse. And I let it because I don't know, like maybe I'm a masochist or something.
Well, there's a certain amount of helplessness that you're not helplessness, like you're at the whim of your subconscious mind. Yeah.
But I'm really good at I'm a very light sleeper, so I'm very good at waking myself up. But it's a chase scene, and then it gets hide and seek, gets creepy, and now I'm being chased for my life.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So it's wild, the stuff that we remember of a dream. I wonder if it's telling me something.
Well, I think you should, if you ever have the gumption.
That's another good word.
If you ever have the gumption to the presence to like just stop and let the entity catch you and turn. I'm pretty confident that if you face up to it, it's going to transform before your eyes.
I wonder.
I'm pretty confident that that's what's going to happen. Like we don't always have the consciousness in our dreams to like make decisions like that. But if you got it in yourself to like program yourself somehow to just be like, okay, what are you going to do? It's not going to do the thing that you thought it was
Well,
going
of
to do.
course,
It's going to like
yeah,
give you a gift. It's going to give you this insight. And if you can write that down, that's going to give you some insight.
maybe.
I'm putting my money on it.
I'll if I can, I will. I'll update you on any
All right,
any
all
other
right.
further dreams. So that what did that piece for you? Did that further your career at all, or did that gain any notoriety?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it like I don't think it was a that first round of it. I don't think it was like ready. I don't think it was like a a wonderful show. There was insight in it. There was a white guy trying to reckon with his own privilege and existence as a white guy in our society. You know what I mean? So there was that, but it like, was it stupendous? No. If it was stupendous, would it have probably done more for my career? Yeah, but it was also like, it was a project where you learn. If you don't have your MFA, your spiritual theater MFA comes from your solo piece. I think you're symbolic. You know what I mean? It's not a piece of paper,
right?
But it's
yes.
like your teeth are cut on the compression of putting together that work.
Right. So what was next for you from there?
Well, I was also like, I was making theater with other companies, so like that was at that point, soon after that piece, or like alongside it, like I got commissioned to write that music for the Brechtian piece. It was this company in DC called Dog and Pony DC, and they were wonderful. They were activists. They were like, the show was supposed to be a mimic of a tent revival, with shouts and with like audience participation. The actors were all to like Brechtian theater is like it's known for having broken the fourth wall. It's when
Have you ever seen Shakespeares Bridge?
No.
Oh,
Shakespeare does it, of course. Like he was.
No, this is a specific show. It's
Okay.
on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And it is it's three guys performing all of Shakespeare's stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it is the funniest thing and it's a lot of audience participation.
Uh-huh. Oh, cool.
And that's why but if you haven't seen it, it's so funny. It's like,
Okay, I'll check it out.
yeah,
Well,
Shakespeare Bridge.
right, the Snoopy Race for Your Life or Charlie Brown Race for Your Life,
Yep.
and Shakespeare's Bridge works. I got it. It's on my list. Yeah.
So
Okay, so the director wanted gypsy punk music, and I hadn't heard of gypsy punk music. I was like, well, just a songwriter, and she knew me as a songwriter. So in Brechtian shows, one of the elements is he's written lyrics. So the director's job is to find a composer that can write music to the lyrics. It's
Gotcha.
open-ended, and there's not a note written in that in his script. You know what I mean? So it's all open to the interpretation of the director and the director's team. A lot of shows are, but like, except like when you're talking about musicals, there's a score.
Right, of
It's
course.
like no score, just words. So my job was to take that and hash it out and put in music. So she wanted gypsy punk music. So she turned me on to Gogol Bordello, Tom Waits, the Decemberists, Beirut.
Beirut, yeah.
I know there was more, Devachka, just because those guys have, Gogol Bordello was like, for me, that was the seminal, gypsy punk band. And I'm even gathering that the word gypsy is a racial slur.
Oh, yes.
So like, here we go. Like, sorry. And so Roma punk
Right.
music, right? Like, even though they build themselves that way, right? So I don't know.
It's a weird, in America, it's not typically viewed as such a way.
Mm-hmm.
But other ways, other places it is.
Anyway,
Right.
to like, move forward, like I played guitar, I MD'd the thing, and my director found a drummer, a bassist, and a violinist, and two accordionists, because the one accordionist couldn't make some days, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there were two accordionists that were playing in this because she wanted accordion, and I wrote these simple songs. There wasn't a bridge in the thing. because I didn't find any bridges in any of the music that I was, it was just like, nor was there like a lot of space for it in the libretto, in the words, in the text,
Gotcha, libretto, yeah.
it was just, but I put a lot of shouts in there. I put these simple repetitive songs, and we had this ensemble that would shout, like gang vocals, and then the actors would step forward and sing one of the songs, and then this character would step up and sing that song. You know what I mean? Just like a musical, but we, instead of like a pit, there was a live band, a rock band. You know what I mean? Or a Roma, rock band.
Right.
With, so like after the show was great. It was wonderful, and it did what we wanted it to. The audience was moved. It was like, it was really an anti-war message. It was just about the capitalists who fueled the war and took advantage of all the people that were underneath them.
Right.
But after the show was over, the band, we liked each other so much that we just kept on playing on. We're just like, all right, we're gonna keep playing. We had fun time. And the accordionists were busy. They were working. They were like, oh, we gotta go, man. We can't stay around for this band. Sorry. So I was like, well, I could play the accordion. I could learn.
I could figure it out.
So it wasn't long until like that. Like the accordion has given me has led to a lot of opportunity for me.
Sure.
Yeah. And the next thing I know, I was on a national tour, and it wasn't the accordion that like I wasn't even good at it at that point. I could sing well. I was like a folk tenor, like an Irish tenor voice. And, it's debatable whether I'm a tenor or a baritone. I'm probably a baritone, but I could sing in that style, So it was like my singing, like sort of an untrained, like I said, I even like when I took up music, I was not great at it. You know what I mean? Like talent and desire, or some talent and desire. Yes. But like, was I good? No.
Right.
But I got land, it was like when I was auditioning for that piece, I had to play accordion. I had to play these difficult pieces on accordion, and I was like struggling, learning, like spending all of that time just on the chance that I would get a part in this show,
Right.
So like they actually found another accordionist, a ringer, that was much better than I, and they hired me as like the singer, the musical narrator, like in Burl Ives in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special. Like that was my part in this show called Warhorse. And I actually only played the accordion for just a little bit, but like I could sing like I was that guy. It wasn't that I was particularly well prepared. It wasn't that I was like, I was dedicated enough to try very hard at the audition, like that I had. And I was present at the audition too, from that Naropa thing. And I was like, well, the heck, I'll play the accordion. That was like also the gift from Naropa, is like, if you want to play the accordion, the world needs that. So like those things led to that, but like it was a lottery that I won to get on that. And then when I got out of that production, when I landed, having been on this giant tour, I went to New York and I said, oh, well, I'll just go and get more roles.
Just go to Broadway.
Right. And it was like, well, duh, that's what you do when you finish a Broadway tour.
Yeah.
And I got my tail handed to me.
I'm sure.
Handed to me. And I've since, like earned more theater,
place,
but it was like, oh, these guys who are auditioning are
top.
They're
top of the line.
I want to say like bad.
Right, bad behinds. Yeah. People don't realize that Broadway is probably the global spot for theater. If you're good at theater, you're going to go to Broadway.
Sure, yeah.
And those like you're dealing with world-class musicians at that point.
Yeah, and actors.
Yes, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I consider actors musicians as well. But I guess they do plays there as well. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like, this is like sort of what I've come to the conclusion of, like, if I'm going to bill myself or like push for myself, like in theater, like paid theater opportunities to go audition for anymore. When I go to New York, it's for actor-musician jobs. It's for somebody who they need can like handle some Shakespearean text, decently enough, like I'm no expert, but I can speak well, play the accordion and guitar, and sing,
Yes.
So it's like if you can do all those three things, you can compete in the New York circuit. You know what I mean? I don't go out for everything anymore. I just like...
Yeah, it's incredible that, granted, I haven't... The theater world that I know, it's the three talents that you need to have is dancing, singing, and acting. Now that I'm noticing or expanding my experience of theater, it's more of you have to add musician to that, and then you have like the quadruple talent. And then
they're there though too. They're out there. Those guys.
I don't doubt that. I know a woman who can dance while playing the violin. You know how hard it is to dance while playing the violin well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're out there and they're doing stuff. Well, we're kind of running out of our radio time, but we will keep going live on Facebook. So you said Once Upon a Time or One at a Time was from your the one man show. What was that show called?
Called The Race.
The Race. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is this song? What's the message?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's a call to courage, to adventure. Like like in the beginning of the song, there's just the din of it's straight from the dream, it's the din of the dining in the restaurant. I had my bandmates speak this text, just to create a din. And then I say outside the window behind me, or the window behind this huge sailing race, off the deck overlooking the shore. And then the chorus says, the water wide, the wind we ride, the story waits, the starting shot fires. So it's basically like a call to go forward, to have courage, to, you know what I mean? I don't know if I meant for it to be like that, but that's what the song turned out to be.
Well, with all that said, that is One at a Time by Mr. John Milosich.
The starting shot fires. I reach up and take from high on the wall a long, antique oar. In the clasp of my hands, it extends into a makeshift sailing device. I hold it above the fin behind, the point straight ahead, and close my eyes. Like some sail, it catches wind and lifts me off the ground, outside the open window and off the deck, overlooking the shore, one at a time. Sail. Look past the face sophistication, banded legs and clasp of hand. Soft grow the knees, strong grow the breeze. With faith that knows and sees ahead, the race we lead before we rest. The water wide, the wind we ride. The story waits, the starting shot fires. The water wide, the wind we ride. The story waits, the starting shot fires. And seas ahead, come, push away from the shore. Speed the sea, release the stream, line chartered, waters gone. No friction, no grief, no obstacles, they're fading. The hours we walk, we don't stop till dawn. The water wide, the wind we ride. The story waits, the starring shot fires. The water wide, the wind we ride. The story waits, the starting shot fires.
And that was One at a Time, written by John Milosich, but performed by his band, Featherburn. Yeah. So that was really cool. So the kalimba, that was the kalimba they were talking about, that melody that you had in your head.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome, man. What a unique piece. What was it like to record the that part?
The team that I had on Featherburn at that time were superb musicians. This was my first rock band, so they were like taking me to school. You know, I thought, I'm just gonna play sort of that Roma music, and I'll find a band that. So these guys were Central Pennsylvanians, you know what I mean? And they had lots of knowledge and lots of expertise on rock music. So it was a great alchemy, actually, but like, I was also from a theater, background,
yeah.
so it's like sometimes I had to really pull. So to get that vocal thing that was going on, they weren't into it right away. It was like, it was hard. It was like, was this necessary?
That is the main question anyone asks a composer. Is that necessary? Is it really?
Yeah. So really, like, we had to slow it down,
Right,
and what your music teachers tell you, like, if you can do it slow, you can, you can speed it up. But until you do it slow, you're not going to have much of a chance. So like, really, it had to be like, did.
Yeah.
Because
it was all offbeats.
Yeah. But they bucked it up. They did it. Eventually, they came through.
Like, all right, John.
I know. Which is, like my team right now, we had a gig on St. Patrick's Day, and we've since, we're looking for a drummer. So if you know somebody that can play stuff like that, plus the rest of Featherburn stuff, send them my way. We're in the middle of our third audition round of auditions. We did one last year, one in October, and then now here we are again. Or no, it was October, then April, then now. You know what I mean? So it's like just to find the right drummer that can handle this stuff, and is also on board for some of the wonky stuff, you know, because we've definitely turned off musicians that have been like, no, this isn't for me. This is, you know, I just want to play rock music, you know,
or 4/4 music,
yeah,
straight up.
yeah. Whether it's too hard for them or whether it's just not their
style,
bag,
yeah.
you know, like that's probably more likely. I think there are lots of competent musicians out there, but like to get the right blend of somebody who's like they're like, yeah, this is what I want to do, which, you know, my team right now, we're just looking for that last component, you know, like those guys are they're signed up. They're, you know, we play soprano recorders for one song while I tell a story. So they're in, you know,
Right.
and our St. Patrick's Day gig was the one that they were like, okay, I see where we're going with this.
Right.
We're in, you know? So like, I thank them from the bottom of my heart for like getting on board with that.
Awesome. So we have another one of your songs, Hiding in Love. Tell me about this one.
It was a piece like that I started writing before, like a lot of the songs that I write, many of them, not all of them, but like take a long time, you know, like I wrote the beginnings of this piece in, when I was participating in a theater workshop at this theater in DC, the DC area Forum Theater. It's actually in Silver Spring, just outside.
Oh, yeah.
And I it was a short piece, Forum 1 acts or something like that. And I created sort of staged this show about this outcast sort of guy that's looking for love, you know, and I wrote these verses that applied to him, like when he was a babe, when he was a boy, when he was a young man, and when he was a man or something like that. And there were 4 verses but I drew from it. Like I have a nephew who I care very deeply about, and who I like have spent a lot of time. So like I contributed to raising him, you know, I'm not his dad, but like
Right.
it's a village and I'm definitely, you know,
You're
big
his uncle,
part of it.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Right. So part of it was about like when I was carrying him around, the reason we're so close is when he was just a spud, you know, I would get down on the ground and, you know, just mix it up with him.
Hang out with him,
And he would come over to me because I would pick him up and put him on my shoulder, and everybody else put him on their hips, you know? So like in the song Hiding in Love, I say a breathing dirigible for laughing and wailing. So he was like floating, you know, he's either on our hips or on my shoulders, you know what I mean? So that's like where that came from. So like a lot of it is like stages of my life and of his life, like sort of in parallel, because we were into gardening as well. The second verse talks about when I was a boy, the garden was spirit and spoke to us through the dirt in the field, you know. And if we labored, if in summer did our on her belly did our breath, did our breathing. So if we like labored, she would give us her fruit, you know,
Right.
her food, the food that fed us, you know what I mean? So that's like verse 2, but it was also like, it's like I did this,
Right.
and he did that, you know? So like, and then the last verse, it's in French. I stole it from.
I heard that. I was
yeah.
like, French, wow.
Yeah, I don't speak French, but like I thought it needed something different, and this verse from a Victor Hugo poem, and the poem is actually super, super sad. It's about he lost his son, and he's saying tomorrow at dawn, when the day or the sky is still white, when fog is still there, you know, I will leave, for you see, I can't wait to get to you any longer. And his son had died. He was going back to his son's body,
Right.
you know, and he says, I'll go through the forest, I'll go over the mountains, for I can't be without you any longer. And that's what the French verse translates to roughly. But like I said, I just like, I lifted it, you know, like, so you
Right.
got, you know, come get me. We'll take the song down if you need me to.
Who cares? Yeah. That's awesome, man. Repurposing stuff to put shining a different light on it, because in this context, it's very uplifting. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's I can't be without you.
Right,
It's
and that was me on tour. When I
Yeah.
was in that 2-year tour, I was thinking about that boy, you know. So it's like tomorrow at dawn, I'm gonna come and find you, you know. And
Right.
he, you know, he's well and good.
Of
even
course,
now,
yeah, he's
you know.
awesome. It's
But
just-
I was thinking about him. He was on my
I
heart,
want
you
him.
know.
Yeah, I miss him.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
With that said, this is Hiding in Love by Featherburn.
I was a babe, I had the feeling that the mothers and the fathers, they were perfectly tuned. And before I knew blood and before I knew shame, I was riding on hips and adored by them daily, or breathing dirigible, for laughing and wailing. In the pink and the blue, they were one and the same, and all was hiding in love. As a boy, I had the feeling the garden was spirit and spoke through the dirt in the field. If in summer did land on her belly our breathing, in a wheat arrival sprout from the seedling, how she gifted our homes with her body and meaning, and under it all was the mystery of being alive, hiding with love. Tout le monde est l'aube, à l'heure où blanchit la campagne. J'ai pas théorie, voiture, je sais que tout m'attend. J'irai par la forêt, j'irai par la montagne. Je ne puis demeurer loin de toi plus longtemps. Plus longtemps. On and on, all in one, for I have a feeling. Here we have only our feeling, and it's perfectly tuned. With our hearts intertwined in body and meaning, to play and to stay in the mystery of being, in the sorrow and joy and the cuts and the healing, like the pink and the blue, they're just points in the frequency. Our hearts intertwined in body and meaning, our hearts intertwined in body and meaning, with our hearts intertwined in mystery and meaning, our hearts intertwined in body and meaning, with our hearts intertwined in the constant of healing, our hearts intertwined in the mystery of healing, with our hearts intertwined in the constant of healing, to play and to stay in the mystery of healing, our hearts intertwined in the mystery of healing, our sorrow is joy in the constant of healing, with our hearts intertwined in the constant of blue, in the sorrow and joy in the constant of healing. The blue are just points in the frequency.
And that's Hiding in Love by Featherburn. So how many times did it take you to get the French right for that?
Oh, I don't know how many times how many takes it took, like in the studio. it definitely took me a long time to get it. It was one of those like there are moments like in our live show or whatever that like took an ungodly amount of hours to come up with that moment. It's just a moment, you know. It goes by so fast, but like you've spent hours on it, you know. So like, I mean, thank God for YouTube. That's, you know, like that's where I got it. I just pronunciation of that poem, and I just replay it over. And in fact, I ripped it and made an MP3 so I could like study it, you know, put it on repeat and just have all of these, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it took me more than one take. It might have, but like it took me a lot of time to get to the point where I was prepared enough to execute it, you know?
Well, I couldn't tell the difference, but I hope because you know something about French people that you always get really, really annoyed if you mispronounce things correctly.
I'm sure it's only so, you know.
Right.
I have a bandmate. My bandmate Chris DeVitri is he plays fiddle for us, and he never says anything, but I always wonder because, you know, he's fluent in French, you know, and his family is too. Like, he's gracious with me, you know. I know there's like something in there that he'd be like, well, Milo, if I were you, I would say it like this, but he never says anything.
You're just like looking over there as you're singing. It's like I'm waiting for something.
I think about it, you know, like when we're on stage or when we're in practice, it's probably like he's like, that's okay, never mind. You know, it's not worth it.
That's funny.
He's doing it well enough for everybody who doesn't speak French.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Like one day you're gonna get somebody to come up like, that French was awful. I just want you to know that one day.
The French would say that, I'm sure. They would be like, dude.
I've heard stories about the French where an American comes in and they think they got it, but like they go into a store and every day they'll buy something, but eventually they just know what they'll get, so they'll just leave it there. And they're like, oh, they know me so well, but no, it's actually that they just don't want to hear your French.
Right. They'll go out of their way to like
to not hear you speaking correctly.
Yeah, that's me.
That's me. So what's upcoming for the band Featherburn?
Well, you know, like I said, you know, it's strange. Like I feel like I don't want to reach out for gigs, for MiloSolo gigs, you know, because I could play a lot, like most of those songs I could play like by myself. They're not as good. They're not nearly as good. You know, the band is like, they bring it. But it's like I don't want to burn like a notice on myself by reaching out to play these songs as MiloSolo, you know? So I've been, you know, reaching out to play in Buffalo, where I have family in Buffalo and family in Erie, you know, like, so I don't have anything here coming up. The soonest gig that I have is an Oktoberfest gig, because I finally got off my butt and learned some polkas. Yeah, 10 years of playing the accordion, and I didn't learn a single polka. But like year after year, I would get all these invites, these inquiries, you know, like, hey, can you play polka? And I'm like, I actually know polka. So, you know, we're going through a pandemic last year. I might as well, you know, like learn something. So
what's an accordion without polka music?
Yeah, and I wrote my first polka too. So it's like, right. So you can watch for it. It's called Polka Eyes, and it's kind of like, I don't know, you know, in songs there's at least a grain of truth, but like not maybe not much more.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like sort of the power of polka, like the premise of the song Polka Eyes, and maybe I'll play it someday. Like on our one of our pages is like that. The polka player goes and he's creating this music, but there's a woman that, you know, has her eye on him. You know, so yes, you know. He's playing music, and she's got the polka eyes.
Right.
You know, and that's what the three verses like go through the course of the day of like this accordion, and like at the end, you know, everybody's packing up. Everybody, you know, the couples are staggering home to, you know, do what they do at home after a polka party, and then like the question is she waiting for him? Right. You know, but of course, like in the world of like where accordion is king. Of course she's waiting.
Of course she is.
She's got the polka eyes.
It's polka. Of course it has to be.
So there's a lot of levity, you know, that you have to have as an accordion player, I think, just because like I don't know, it's the brunt of a lot of jokes. I mean, I think it's coming back into style. Cool.
Dude, I love polka music. Are you kidding me?
I think it's cool.
It's awesome. It's so cool. There was a setting on my piano as a kid. It was polka, and I kept why
You go to polka.
I started playing polka on the piano. And I love this. It's like the Russian kind of mix, just upbeat.
Uh-huh.
It's like boom bop,
Yeah.
boom bop.
It's real upbeat. Like learning those songs. It was
Yeah.
definitely like I was just like
Yeah, but it's so
it brings
much
light.
fun.
It brings light, I think. Polka, like, we need light, and we need to dance, and just like yeah. So there's definitely a place for it,
For sure. So, if you are a drummer and you would like to be a part of this project, please do contact Mr. John. Where can they contact you?
Oh, well, you can I'm at Milo at featherburn.com. One word, Featherburn. Milo at featherburn.com.
And be sure to check out all of his other projects that he's got. They'll be in the description below. You're on Facebook, Featherburn, Facebook, Spotify. You guys got Spotify?
Yeah, it's all that stuff
All
is
that
up on
stuff.
all the platforms. Like, we have an EP that released in 2018, and then we have 2 more songs that I cooked over the pandemic.
And you guys have some stuff that in the works as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
We got lots of stuff in the works. Like, we need you, drummer.
We just need. That's all we need. That's all we need. We need
Right.
a drummer.
Like, yeah, I think I think, I believe in the cosmos and God, like, I think there's a plan out there, and we're going to find the right person and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, we're just accepting, we're just being patient and putting ourselves out there to find. So if that's you, I'm talking to you.
Yeah. So definitely check out his websites, johnmilosich.com and featherburn.com. And with all that said, you please, if you're on the radio, we're going to continue this conversation live at facebook.com/The Story Corey Rosen. That's CORYROSEN. If you've liked this, if you're on Facebook and listening into it so far, or on Spotify, please check us out on the Facebook or Instagram page, _story_podcast. That's where you can find all upcoming guests, and we got some really cool people coming up. And you can buy some, if you really want to support us, you can buy some merchandise, and I'd really, really appreciate that. With all that said, we're going to get you guys back to the radio, and we will continue here. Cool, man. So, as a part of being an actor-musician, you are also, you have to deal with union stuff and union work.
Yeah, for sure. Like, joining the union was like, it was kind of a no-brainer at the time, like I needed to join to be a part of this, like, touring production that was, well written and well produced, and it was like, okay, duh, join.
Right.
But it put me into like a higher competition bracket, what I mean? Like, everybody, like now equity has, like, since the pandemic sort of made it, forced equity into, like, if it wanted to survive as a union, they needed to open it up to anybody who would pay to get in it. But at that time, you needed to have worked in an equity theater for a certain number of weeks, or acquired a number of weeks working for a professional union theater in order to be eligible to join. You know what I mean? So it's like, not everybody could do it. And I was making lots of work beforehand. I wasn't getting paid much. Right. And that's part of the union, is like they're saying, like, oh, you're not gonna work for jobs that don't pay a living salary or wage, just whatever, and that don't, like, offer you don't put into your retirement and don't put into your insurance. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's competitive, it's like, so like I said, I was making but I was teaching for my bread at the time, until I joined the union. And then, like, coming off of it, like I said, I went to New York and, like, realized just how competitive, it's like, it's life. It's life. It's life or death for many, many people who could, like, could be teachers otherwise, or could be, make other decisions in their lives. So, so really, like, there are much fewer opportunities as for me anyway, as someone who's not like Broadway, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's I found my niche, I guess, where I'm strongest at, you know what I mean? And like, to not go up against the world of, competition that is out there for like even regional theater gigs. That's life or death too. People are like it's not fighting as in negative fighting, but it's like they're competing. Yeah. And they're, the acting world is like they're more supportive than they're not supportive.
Yes.
They're all there. It's like I think it's a generous profession, people who want to be happy and help people and make people happy, you know what I mean? So I do think there's just wonderful, wonderful people, not to mention super talented hustlers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like it's definitely harder to find work meaning like a living wage through theater. I could find a part in a play, a good play, a wonderful piece of art, you know what I mean? And that's really what like led me to form the band, is because when I moved here, I kind of like was coming for that nephew and for my family that's here now, like I left New York and I was like, okay, either I start like getting a job there. Like this was after that tour, when I landed and I went into all the daily auditions and was like, oh, now do I want to like start swimming like the rest of the New York actors that are like waiting tables and all of that stuff? Or do I want to like, am I dedicated to this boy, and dedicated to this family that I'm like sort of, that I'm a growing part of, with my partner. And I just made a decision to like, okay, I'll streamline. I'll go into New York for auditions for targeted jobs. We're only 2 hours and 30 minutes away on a good day, and even during the pandemic, it was like, a lot of stuff has gone to video. So like there are video submissions. And then if you get the callback, you might go to the callback in person, but the idea, the Featherburn was me saying like, well, I gotta do something. I gotta create, you know what I mean? And I can't, this is non-union.
Right. Yeah.
Featherburn is
exactly.
definitely non-union, so like I just started writing music and bringing my, I don't know, outlook with theater and influence into like a show, building a show that's more than just songs.
Yes, the union thing was bizarre to me because apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can only take union jobs.
That's right.
And so
or a non-union theater can like abide by a union contract, So like Sight and Sound hires non-union actors, and like to my knowledge, like, so forgive me if you're from Sight and Sound and you know better than I, but to my knowledge, they'll hire, like Samson is a union actor. They'll offer him a union contract. Moses, and maybe Moses' wife,
gotcha.
and Jesus, like the lead roles are from your union contracts, and then all of the other, they pay, but they're not like paying union, so like Sight and Sound, thank you for paying actors, what I mean?
They're very, from the people I've spoken to, they're very generous with their payments.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
like they don't need an accordion songman in their productions, so it's like I would have an eye on productions there, but like they I'm not the guy that they would offer an equity contract to.
You ever checked out Servant Stage?
No.
Oh,
No.
They're really cool. They're you should check them out. Servant Stage.
Offering equity contracts for accordionists. Your musicians?
Double check.
Okay, yeah,
Check
that's
with
fair.
it. See, because Servant Stage is a large assortment of productions, and they're really cool. It's a really cool, because their mission is theater for everyone, theater access for everyone. So it's always a pay what you will thing. Whether they do that kind of work would be beyond me, but I would just check to be sure, because it's a really cool mission.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Okay.
and there's also other great theaters around here, like Prima, Kavad. There's really great theaters, so you forget to every single one of them.
No, and there are a couple of equity houses.
Fulton.
Like there's the Fulton. Like they cast a production of Once. That like that would be like near my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? I think I wasn't in town when they were having auditions for that, so like that sort of passed me by. But like there's a theater at Mount Gretna
Mount
Theater.
Gretna Theater, yep.
Yeah,
That's the one.
and I've seen stuff that like I have an eye on those guys. And then there's
Open Stage Theater in Harrisburg. Have you heard of them?
I probably heard, but not auditioned for any of them. Yeah. So
Right.
it's like a lot of the theaters, they actually Gretna has often I see music like
Yes.
actor musician
Yeah.
shows. They do that stuff. So like I've got my eye on those guys, and I've auditioned for them and not gotten cast too.
Mm.
So like and that could be because I'm not good enough, or it could just be like they, I just wasn't the
Right.
guy for that, and and that's okay too. Like that's sort of the world.
That is exactly the world, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is it like to have to create a band and have to create music? Where does your draw or your inspiration come from? Some of them have been dreams, other have been. So it sounds like a lot of life experiences that you kind of draw off of.
Sure. I think like I read this amazing book called The Live Music Method. If any of you are out there, like you're looking to create a good like live show, I can't recommend that book. It's changed my life as a band, a ringleader or a performer, a stage musician. You know what I mean? And it's really, there's a lot in there about audience psychology and structuring a set and creating memorable like moments in your show to like to bring more to it than just like playing songs, so like that's definitely where I'm coming from as a ringleader, as a band leader and a writer. Like I write songs now to go in a certain place in the set, or if there's like I guess a lot of it for me as a writer is like what reason do I have to create this song? Do I need to fill a slot on stage for the second song in our sets that like should be just kind of casual, kind of upbeat, maybe a 3 out of a 5 intensity, something groovy, just to show that we're up and we're fun. And then later on in the show, as like the audience gets to know us and we've surprised, we've pulled out the kalimba, or we've told a story that's engaging, we can bring in some of the material that's more like meaningful. There's definitely songs in our show that's just, they're nonsense.
Right,
They're just levity, and it's just for the sake of like building a relationship with an audience, so
Building rapport.
yeah, and having and just having fun. But then like in there is also
meat.
like songs, that are like more meaningful, like the meat. So like a lot of times, like there's got to be for me to write a song anymore. It's like there's got to be a reason to do it. Like for this song, like the one of the songs I wrote over the pandemic was called "Setting Fires," and it was very much in response to the George Floyd the riots and the unrest that was that was like rampant through that. And I wasn't able to I could have gone out and participated in any of the protests, but like I hung back, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to keep my family safe from pandemic. I didn't want to go out and catch the coronavirus, but so I sent word out to our community, the Featherburn community, write me what did that do to you? What do you think about that? And I took those words that our people, lent us, and I made that into the song "Setting Fires." So it's like, it's always it's like about the reason for the song anymore.
So I actually have that.
Oh, sure. I wasn't trying, I wasn't doing a shameless plug, but I
downloaded a 3-year songs, and I was like, well, "Setting Fires" sounds like a cool one. I'll add that one. So we actually have that one. So that's what it's about.
Great. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Here it is.
This was straight from the words of our community. I took liberties in shaping it, but it's our audience, that was engaged with it, the process of the songwriting.
And with that said, this is "Setting Fires" by Featherburn.
sense, hope, shock, feel, build, change, love, heal, side, lose, keep, seize, cause, cast, want, need, speak, watch, act, reach, work, help, scream, breach, heart, root, pain, place, know, truth, end, raised, generation crescendo, so much to defend now with scars all tremendous and noise so relentless, and as winter's descending and tables are bending, we turn to our senses, we witness transcendence. Actions are born out of words again, the shots they are fired again, the echoes are heard again, alarm again, the arm again, the pieces disturbed again, we burn again, we raise our fists and call out our herd again and yearn, setting fire, 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 setting fire.
And that was Setting Fires by Featherburn. So, what is it like to... You've been traveling around the world, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not right now.
Well,
like
but in the
but I
past,
have.
yes.
Yeah, I definitely.
What were some of the biggest culture shocks that you experienced going around the world?
Well, culture shock is a like I don't know if I've experienced lots of culture shock after
Thailand.
my experience in Thailand. Like that was like I was so young too, I mean, I was your age,
Right, yeah.
but I don't mean that in a diminutive way, but like
Well, I mean, when you go outside the U.S., it's completely different, no matter where you go.
yeah, it was different. Like a lot of it was like just the stuff that I didn't know. It was like their norms are different. What's rude and what's acceptable is different,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but tipping in Thailand is harshly viewed, right?
That I don't know. I probably tipped.
Well, because I know in certain Asian countries that if you tip their food, or if you tip the waiter waitresses, it's almost like they look like they need the money, like it's like a look down. Oh, you think I'm poor? It look down on it that way. Versus America, tipping is
it's expected. Yeah. I you know what I didn't learn that lesson. Like I think
That's okay.
I think we tipped. I don't know if it was like we tipped quite as much as like what's sort of I don't know. I don't feel obligated to tip, but I feel like I should tip a certain amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially growing up in America.
Yeah.
Tipping is the expectation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when going to a different country, people, I'm sure they've dealt with that issue many times, so they were just okay with it.
Yeah.
on some level.
I think there was a lot more humility in Thailand. Like when I was there, and it's been since 2000, right? So the culture's changed too. But like, I think my personality would be like more outgoing or more louder. You know what I mean? And that was necessarily like, I didn't think that was doing me any favors to like be loud. It's like just to consider other people, and like people might not want to hear your volume. You know what I mean? And I don't think I was obnoxious by our standards, but I think like over there I was, there was a certain like demeanor that was more acceptable that I think like I didn't know about. So like I had to learn that the hard way and rub people the wrong way, and just like not. Yeah, I was still surrounded by a bunch of expats or like teachers that were like me that had just gotten out of college. You know what I mean? So it's like I had a community of
similar
Westerners. You know what I mean, that I was teaching with, but like, so it's like I didn't have to worry that much because the people that I was like seeing every day. But
what about in Japan?
We spent a month in Japan, and gosh, what did I learn there about Japanese culture? I mean, Tokyo was the town that we were in.
If you were in Tokyo, seeing Tokyo from like air, like a bird's eye view, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger than like, because I think like big cities in the U.S., New York City, Los Angeles, Tokyo, it's giant.
It was like one of those anime movies where you like see like that was the real thing.
Yeah, it's like Coruscant. There's like, I think, right? There's like multiple levels of it.
I think yeah.
And that's just wild to me. That was like when I first went to Chicago, when you got the multi-level city, and it's like there's like an underground, there's like a middle ground, and there's the above ground. It's like I don't like driving Chicago. I was so mad. GPS has no clue where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And then I was at a stoplight and all the lights were green, and I didn't know what to do. People are honking at me. I'm like, what do you want me to do? But Tokyo, and there's like mountains around it, right?
Yeah,
Well. So
Fuji's not far.
Yeah. It's so compact, but so big,
but so sprawling, but like so many people, like like very little space for how much space it takes, like just for the sheer number of people that are, but like, I think I could be projecting. It could be my, just me rationalizing it in my mind of like why behavior is a certain way, but it was very much a culture of like, consideration. They were trying to like, they rein in like I don't want to sound stupid by like, generalizing a people, you know what I mean? But I got the impression that it was the many over the one, the emphasis on like taking care,
utilitarianism.
Sure, yeah, and like I'm gonna take up as little space as I can on the subway. In fact, like here, if there was a subway train that was empty, you take your space. And I gathered, and this is just one of the things that I read, is that like if you don't sit close to the person, the stranger next, near you, it's like you're taking up too much space. You're looking to save space and in consideration of other people. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
Yeah, so it's very much like we're trying to function as this megalopolis.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we need to like prioritize like courtesy.
Well, I know one thing about Japanese culture, at least in the past, was that if you're working, people don't, like in America, once you're done your job, you're gone. You see ya, good luck. I don't care if you're still working. But in Japanese culture, what I've heard is that once one person stops working, they'll help all the others until everyone's done, and then leave as a group together.
Sure, and go out and have something to eat and something to drink together.
Yeah. It's much more corporate, as in group think, than individualistic.
Yeah, that's the word that I was looking at. The many over the one. It's not an individualistic, and I think it's changing as like the global culture becomes global culture. You know what I mean? And like the Western influence, like I know Tokyo is described as Eastern, but it's definitely got a
Oh,
Western
it's become a Western nation for sure.
mhm.
That in South Korea, I believe.
Yeah, I've never been to South Korea.
I want to go to South Korea. It seems like a really cool place and really good. I want to test out the food.
Yeah,
That's what I want to.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I want to do.
There was great food.
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
in Tokyo, like it's an art form, like
Yeah,
it's an art form
yeah,
here,
it's-
but like
right.
I think traditionally,
Because
is-
it's got it. Japanese food has got like 1,000+ years on us at least
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like food culture.
Uh-huh.
And so they've really like dedicated their craft of
Mhm.
making stuff like sushi, stuff like the pufferfish,
Mhm.
stuff
Yeah.
where you have to have like a license to cut it correctly,
Uh-huh.
or else you literally will kill somebody
Kill somebody
because it's poisonous.
I didn't have pufferfish.
You didn't have it. Was it a scare thing or?
I don't know. I wasn't seeking it. I wasn't like out to be like, yeah, I'm gonna order pufferfish.
I would just like to try
You
it.
would
Just to see,
you would go for it.
just to see what it is,
Yeah.
Because if it's such a delicacy, I gotta know why, or at least what it tastes like. One thing I want to try is tarantula.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Because apparently, at least down south, that's like a thing.
Uh-huh.
They have like the giant tarantulas, and they got a lot of meat on it.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen some people use. I would never do this, but they use the fangs, like pick their teeth out,
Wow.
and like that's some hardcore cowboy.
Uh-huh.
Right there.
Right, yeah.
Right. Yes.
Uh-huh. It's like
yeah, right,
nuts.
right, exactly. It's stuff I want to try. I've had gator before. Have you ever had gator?
Yeah.
Gator's awesome.
Yeah.
It's people will always describe it like chicken, and that's because it's exactly what it tastes like.
Yeah, it's a little chewier than
It's-
chicken.
Yeah, it's a little more tender, but but the taste is exactly the same.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started your craft?
Oh, well, on the way in here, I was thinking like just like study harder when you're young, like if I think it would have been helpful for me also to have started playing music younger, because like I was 19 or 20 before I like picked up an instrument, so like I still feel like I'm behind, in a lot of ways. So like, learning how to read music,
yeah.
like is something that I wish I would have put more time and more effort into, like always, like that would be my big, do-over.
And the time to do it is when you're young. It's so much harder to learn something new as an adult. And that's just scientifically proven.
Uh-huh.
Studies have shown that, especially like language learning, when they do it in high school, I took 3 years of Spanish. I don't know. That's not true. I can speak a little bit of Spanish, but the amount of Spanish that I should have retained in 3 years should have been way much more than I have now. But they found that if you teach it as an early age, because people are learning their native language, or at least the language that their parents speak, just by looking and whatever, and that's how it's been done for literally the entire human existence. So if you learn it at a young enough age, though, it helps you retain that way easier, way longer, even if you haven't used it in years.
Yeah, I definitely forgot most of the Thai that I learned. It was just a year of my life too. So
Right.
but it was.
But still, that's a whole entire year.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 years that I took were semesters. Granted, high school semesters, so I guess that's a little bit more of a year, maybe like a year and a half. Either way, I wasn't in, you being actually in Thailand,
Immersed,
and deeply immersed into the culture, and not having retained that. That's just shows how adults' brains are already hardwired in a certain way.
Yeah, I think I would pick it up faster
You
if I
definitely
went back.
would, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what is a mistake? So that's kind of the same question. What are mistakes that you have encountered with your band and like stuff like that, like gigging or otherwise that you would like to speak to, so that way others that come follow in your footsteps might not make?
Yeah, you know what I think. I think that maybe in some way I like conceptualized that it was a small world. and you're bound to run into this person or that person again, like conceptually, I would agree with that, sure, but like it really happens, and it's like there's good reason, like there are plenty of reasons to just do your best all of the time, to be like gracious and generous and like gracious with yourself, like forgive yourself, of course, for like, the stuff that you wish you wouldn't have done, but also like just to always be presenting like goodness, like everybody has bad days and all of that stuff, but like when I'm out, if I run into somebody, I'm gonna meet that person again. And if I'm in a musical situation, where I'm like performing, it helps me, it helps everyone if I'm kind and good and generous to like everybody around, the musicians that I'm working with, the people that are, working the bar, the audience, the people that are like on crew that are like helping with sound and stuff like that. It's like all of that stuff. It's like you run into everybody again, not just in Lancaster, but like in theater works, like
or they've heard of somebody you worked with before, or they're friends with them,
and you can get a call based on somebody's like, yeah, that guy was a cool hang.
Yeah,
like be a good hang, I think is one of the messages, I think, is like, even if you're having trouble, like you don't want to burden anybody out there with like, oh, wow, this isn't right and that isn't right. You want to be as cool as you possibly can with what you're given in that moment. The bar is super, super noisy and you can't hear yourself think.
Yeah.
Like you can't slip from like being good to other people for that reason. You know what I mean? Because everybody loses in that situation. Like they lose because they get picked up your jerkness, my jerkness. You know what I mean? If I was like feeling entitled to more,
a little bit.
Yeah, and it turns their evening worse. But also like it's like those people know who you are. They're gonna see you again. So like I think just to work as hard as you can, not to like kiss people's butts, they want authenticity, but like also just to like be a good, cool person to be around. Yeah.
Cordial. It's literally
even when the heat is on,
you are gonna get so much more respect if you can keep your cool and keep the flow going, right? If you lose it, granted, you can work your way out of that situation and you can rebuild bridges. But the respect that and the following that you're gonna get, following by what I mean is by relationship wise or fan base wise, even on some level. But if there's a hectic situation going on, everything is working wrong for you, or you're just being annoyed by the smallest little of things. If you can keep your cool and get through the situation with being nice and you're feeling what you're feeling, but you can shove that aside and shove that out of the way because you are there to give somebody else an experience. That's the gold.
Yeah,
and I
agree. Yeah. It's ultimately we're trying to give a gift.
Yes.
Like and that's like stage, like stage one is I want to get on stage. Stage two is I want to make people's lives better. That's like, I think that's where we should be working from, the place that we're working from.
That's where the desire should be, is to make other people have a good time.
Yeah.
Not make us enforce, but
yeah.
You're gonna have a good time. You're gonna love the set.
Are you having fun yet?
So you've done many tours as well.
Not many tours. I've gone on a couple of tours. There was a
Mini
Warhorse
tours.
tours, right? And then this other production that I was in, it was called a co-production, which means like there's one cast, one set of props and costumes, but it like 3 theaters hire like 3 theaters commission that piece to be performed there. So like the last theater piece right before the pandemic I was in was a show called Indecent, and we performed at Arena Stage in DC. I got the gig through an audition in DC, and then it traveled to Kansas City after a week's performance and performed for a week there, or no, not a week, a month there. We rehearsed for a week and performed for 4 weeks, and then came to Baltimore and performed there.
That's got to be very taxing.
I think I loved it. And one of the things like you get to have, if you're lucky enough to be in a show that that resonates with you, is like when I was bowing, when we were taking our curtain call, there was just no doubt in my mind that I was like making the world a better place through the hours that I was put in. It was like, there's no doubt in my mind. I don't have to go home and wonder, like, did I do something significant today? And that is that is the sweetest spot for, if you can like get a gig where you can perform 7 times a week, you know what I mean? And have that feeling where the show is like, you couldn't have said it any better yourself, and you're working with a cast of actors or musicians who also are on board with that same thing. It's like, the greatest gift as far as like my theatrical career has been, like.
Right. That's awesome.
And then when the show's over, it's just like crickets, it's just, it's gone. No, not thank God. It's like all of that wonder that you're experiencing, and then you're like,
oh yeah,
what do I do now?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I know some people who are like, after it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, maybe. Sure. I can understand. Like, when we were in Warhorse, we performed that show over 400 times.
Yeah, that's.
So it was very purgatorial. I know that's a grim word, right? Like you felt like you were in between.
It's another good word.
Yeah, it was like words. Purgatory. It was like we were all like, okay. Like trying to find ways to cope with the fact that we would repeat the same thing over and over again. And it's like, okay, yes, there was that. And sometimes you don't feel like it, but it's like,
what next? Because that's been your entire life. For
yeah, I think so.
That's something I've always heard of, like when actors are done, like, oh, thank God. But what now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, wrapping up, last question. What is one of the funniest or worst things that ever happened to you on stage?
Oh. Can I tell 2 quick ones?
You can tell 2 quick ones.
Okay. When I was in college, I was playing El Gallo in the Fantastics. I don't know if you know the show. It's just like he's an ex-swashbuckler, right? And I'm supposed to, like I'm giving, like sort of watching over this young couple, as their love blossoms, and I'm, like, anyway, one of the moments there were 2 big monologues, like sort of in the center of this show that I would, and in one of them, the cue for the monologue, the something in the monologue would cue another one of the actors to come out of a chest, like a treasure chest that he'd been waiting since the beginning of the show to come out of. And I recited the wrong monologue. His cue never came. He went all the way till intermission in this chest. And we had to figure out like how to introduce this character.
Oh no.
Because I recited the wrong monologue. I will like he was nice, he forgave me, but like we had 4 shows and one of them he did not perform in the first act. Because he was stuck in a chest because his cue never came.
So that's like an hour and a half.
Yeah, he's in a chest.
Oh no!
Right. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it other than like, wow, I can't believe that happened.
How do you say sorry?
Right.
Like I've been stuck in this chest.
Right.
Dude. Oh, thank God he didn't get like a cramp.
Yeah, I don't know. We were young,
Right.
So the second one was when I was in Warhorse, like my job as a musical narrator is like the head storyteller, right? Like I'm the one that's outside the world of the play. Everybody else is like inside it, and my part is like standing outside sort of watching. So in the very, very beginning of the show, I walk out, like the curtain comes up and it's totally black. I walk out with this like sketchbook. It's like a sketchbook. There's this theme of this sketchbook being used all through the play, right? So I walk out to center stage and I make eye contact with the audience to like welcome them, and I pull out this sketchbook and open it, and then the play starts. Like the lights dim and the scene starts. It's because I opened this book to tell this story of our ancestors who were like, what happened?
Did you drop the book?
No, I forgot the book.
Oh no!
I forgot it. So I walk out, I make eye contact with this audience, and I like feel my stomach drops. And this is like a big production, like you're not supposed to make mistakes like that.
Right.
Like it, and I sit there for a minute. I stand there for a minute and just like smile, wondering what the hell. And I'm sure the guys backstage, like who were running the lights and the sound, they were like
panicking.
Well, they probably didn't notice until
that's fair, yeah.
because we had done it 300 times,
Yeah.
Yeah. So like then I hear backstage.
Yeah.
And then one of my ensemble mates brings the book out to me and played it off like he meant, like this is the way it was supposed to go.
Right.
So for all of, I don't know, there's been a lot of grace that I've received on the receiving end,
That's hilarious though.
1,000,
dude, the amount of terror you must have felt.
yeah, if not 1,000 people in the audience, like hundreds of people
Right.
that are just waiting for this show. They're like,
What's going on?
something's supposed to happen now,
The guys, you look around.
right?
What's he doing? What's his name? See him backstage.
Yeah. So, if you did something like that, you're not alone. But like,
That's so funny.
yeah, I'm ashamed, but not like okay, I can make fun of myself.
Oh, of course. It's if you can't make fun of yourself, you're gonna have a sad life.
Yeah.
You have to make fun of yourself. There were so many times where I've done the stupidest thing, but I laugh the heck out of it now because it's in the moment. You're feeling your stomach has gone through the floor. You don't know where you're at. You're looking around. You start shaking. You're sweating, and it's like,
Yeah.
I have messed up.
Yeah.
But when you look back on it, you're like, that was the funniest thing that has ever happened to me. And it's because you can laugh at it because you're like, well, I was stupid.
Nothing I can do about it now.
Nothing I
right?
can do about it now. And it's like, well, duh, stuff happens like that all the time. You just got to be able to accept that, move on, and be like, oh yeah, remember that time you forgot the book? Ha ha ha. Because everyone else is going to do that as well.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to make fun of yourself like that.
And I guess trust that like eventually my castmates who have like, dedicated their lives to this will like employ grace and be like, yeah, it could have happened to me. It probably wouldn't have, but it could have.
And it's not to say that, because granted, when people are in the moment as well, they feel that also terror. There was the one moment in we were running a show in Ruth, Sight and Sound's Ruth. They did it here at LBC. It's the first time that it's ever been done outside of Sight and Sound, or anything has ever been done outside of Sounds. But we had a remote control boat, right? But it got caught on the rope for the curtain, and had I not realized that in that moment, the whole entire apparatus would have fallen down.
Oh wow!
So I was stuck. I was there, holding on for dear life. I'm fighting this remote controlled boat, right? I'm just pulling on for dear, and I had a sprained ankle at the time, so I'm trying not to injure myself. But I don't care about myself at this point. I care about the whole entire show being like, zoom. Oh, look, there's backstage. Everybody else waiting around.
But that was you at a high moment. You were coming in and saving the day.
Yeah, but I was still scared to death because it's like, I'm just losing this fight against this motorized boat. It's motorized. I only have this has got more horsepower than I could ever run in my life. But thankfully, whoever Brianna Wilhelm, who was playing the narrator at the time, kind of like kind of like you
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
role. She just calm as ever. I made there was no fanfare. All of a sudden, I hear her start singing, and all of a sudden, slack, and I fall back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, what she did, she was just, no, and the guy driving the boat didn't realize either. So that's why I had to fighting it, because he was like,
What's wrong with this
What's
thing?
wrong with this thing?
Turbo boost.
Yeah, right. I'm like, stop! And it was calm as ever. She went, shoop, and it all slack. And I was like, oh my gosh. And but so everyone else out there was like panicking as well. Everyone behind stage, like, what's going on? I'm being phoned in. What's going on? What's happening? Why isn't the boat moving? And they see the rope. Why is the rope attached to the? But now we all laugh at it because it was fun.
And you saved the day.
And I saved the day with a broken foot.
Remember that? Remember when Corey saved the day?
It's fine, but it was terrifying in the moment. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Even when I've made mistakes, terrifying in the moment, but I can laugh at it, and it's part of the human experience, making mistakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess like getting over yourself when like you still need to have a presence in that performance. You can't let it like ruin the rest of it. You know,
you have to keep moving on.
Yeah.
And that was the thing with the actor that kept trying to move. He was like, "I'm so sorry. If I had known."
Yeah.
But now he just had to keep moving, and that's something. It's a thing from a lot of sight and sound people, because they have animals on stage.
Yeah.
And there's poop on stage. So
you just gotta keep moving.
Sometimes they step in it. It's like, I just stepped it, and I gotta keep going. I gotta keep singing.
Wow. Like you felt it. You like almost slid.
Me.
Yeah.
And they're like, I gotta keep going.
Is it in your contract?
I don't. Well, do I have insurance for this? I don't know. Well, I mean, this is something that happens. Usually, 30 sheeps, like with David. Sometimes they fall over. It's kind of funny, but you can't break character. Or
like a sheep will just fall over.
Yeah, sometimes they just faint. Right? How are you gonna keep yourself together? You're singing to the sheep, but you know?
Yeah.
So you just got to keep going, and you laugh about it, right? It's like, one time we were watching the show Queen Esther, and there's a dog in it, and this lovely pure little dog, it had to run down the stairs, jump off the set, and like go away, and it mistimed its jump, so it went poof. Oh. It was like scribbled on the floor, and then when it got up, it ran right back into the set, so boom. It was poor puppy. But oh my gosh, being in that moment, like the actresses and actors on the stage couldn't
had to
break.
Keep it together. Huh?
They had to keep it together. And keep it going.
And bite your lip, bite your cheek, whatever you got to do to like
just keep going. And these, you know, it's all part of the show, right? Messing up, getting over yourself, keeping going, and focusing on the audience. Focusing on the show, and you know what? At the end of the day,
the night's over.
The night's over. Exactly. So that's okay. Well, do you have anything else to say?
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for coming on.
I love what you're doing, Corey. Like your podcast is great. It's generous, and it's there's so much good information in it. So it's like, congratulations, way to go.
Thank you for adding to it. With all that said, you can find John. That's not
Milosich.
Milosich.
We've been there and back.
We've been there and back again. Yeah. So same thing with making mistakes. You got to keep going, right? Especially with word pronunciations. Oh my goodness, you've given me some great words to get. Gumption. You had you had that really the M word that you used a while back ago. Matriculation.
Yeah. There was purgatorial.
Purgatorial. Right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. If you get nothing from this episode. Matriculation.
You guys knew what that meant.
I had no, dude. Some people come in here with 5-star words I haven't never heard of before. And something. There was one person that came in here had used the word dolt, and I was like,
"Oh yeah,"
and I was like,
"Nice, that's a good word."
It means like a stupid or ignorant person or whatever. And I'm like, what? And like, And I was like, what? I've never in my life ever heard that word before.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to add that to my lexicon.
Yeah.
Or defenestrate. Defenestrate is a great word.
Defenestrate.
Defenestrate. It means to throw someone out the window.
Oh, wow.
Right? What would you know of that word?
Uh-huh.
It's like, I defenestrated myself. And someone goes like, well, you did what to yourself? It's fun. Yeah, but thank you so much for coming on. Check him out at his website, John Milosich.com. That's MILOSICH and John JOHN. I almost said LN for whatever reason.
JOLN.
It's-
JOHN.
JOHN. You can find his stuff on featherburn.com as well. And if you are a drummer that wants to be a part of the band that's
right.
fully committed,
We need you.
doesn't matter if you're young or old, you can come in and join and text him, find out where you guys can connect. It's late. I'm tired. It's late. It's tired. I'm late. Everything.
Right.
With all that said, come join us tomorrow. Tomorrow I am having a guest on at 10:30 o'clock, and that will be it's 1:30 o'clock that'll be having him. 1:30 his name is Kyle, and he runs a really cool website that brings booking for a musician god awful. It's a horrible experience. You have to start emailing people. It's a lot of it's, unless you have an agent, it's a lot of it is on you to do it, right?
Even if you have an agent, a lot of it is on you.
Exactly.
No agent wants somebody that's not going to hustle too.
Right, exactly. This guy has made a website where you can make your own profile. He's got Tellus 360 Fetish on all these different venues on there, and you can make this website so that way these venues can find you and book you, or you can reach out these venues and they can book you as well. And it makes it so much easier for people to for venues to find you, find your music, and book you on a show. So I'm gonna have him on tomorrow. He just recently started this website. So if you're an aspiring musician, check out Stage Rush. That's what it's called. And we'll be here tomorrow to talk more about it. If you have liked this episode, please be sure to share, like, subscribe, follow, all that jazz. If you really want to support us, please check out our merchandise. We have stickers and we have hoodies with the logo on the front and the 50 first guests on the back. With all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.